Tess, thank you for pairing up with me here. This is going to be fun, right?
Absolutely. It's all about fun.
Yeah, great. Well, for everyone who's got the comments and the chat open, definitely open the chat. So Tess and I were excited to come and pair up together, but we said, okay, what do we do? This is going to be morning for some people in Asia Pac. This is going to be the end of a long day for some people on, in the East Coast and across Europe. And this is going to be, I don't know, right smack in the middle for those in California like myself. So we decided that we wanted to make this fun for all of you. So today we're gonna have a little fun with people analytics, and we will go ahead and start just with a quick little intro. I'm Heather Whiteman. I am a people analytics lecturer, and I just love talking about this stuff. Huge advocate for people data for good, and excited to be here and share. And Tess, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll tell them what we're getting up to in this session.
Sure, no, love to. So likewise, in regards to Heather's, the time that we spent putting this together was all about a capital F for fun. In terms of who I am, well, I've been working in the space of workforce planning and analytics for nearly 20 years now. So in the true definition of an expert, about knowing and learning all the mistakes in a very narrow field, that's probably where I'd play. I've learned lots, which has been part of the fun, and learned from my mistakes, which is part of a growth mindset, and being able to, I suppose, take that journey of being able to coach, consult, and be an educator, which I think is why we did this, wasn't it, Heather? Part of it was not just fun with people analytics, but fun with actually, learning and developing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said, well said. So to that, why don't we go ahead and introduce everyone? So again, people, please use your chat, use your comments, have a little fun with us. We would like to play some games with you. So we're going to try to make it educational and fun and talk about topics you care about, but we're going to do it with a little bit of a twist here and there. So, Tess, you want to kick us off with first round of this game? And again, feel free to chime along in the comments as well.
Yeah, I couldn't emphasize that enough, Heather. We're going to need their help, aren't we? Because it's a bit of a playoff between the two of us. Okay, so Heather, you're marooned on People Insight Island. It's known for an abundance of people data. The rainforest is full of powerful processing powers, and your favorite food and drink, of course, is covered. What are the 3 things you hope you have so you can transform the data into insight and get off the island?
Okay, so for those on here, what we've done is Tess is pitching a rough round at me, and then I'm going to pitch a rough round for her, but she started off with a good one. Okay, if I am stranded on Insights Island, as you called it, and I have all sorts of good drink and food, well, one, that'd be a little touchy because, I do like my beer, so at some point I probably need to keep that at a lower amount so that I can perform appropriately with my analytics. But if I could only have 3 things, and again, those in the comments, tell me what your 3 things would be. I'd have to say that I'd want, first of all, a clear objective or business problem to be solved. I want that to be understood, what the outcome looks like, what success looks like. That's probably my number one thing. I don't know if that's available on the island, but that would be the first thing I would go searching for. And then secondly, I think it would be that I'd want a stick to be able to write in the sand. So I'm not sure if my island has paper, maybe it does. But too often I feel like I and many others, we can't help but stick our fingers right onto a computer keyboard and right onto a mouse.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if I had any 3 things, in addition to the problem statement, it would be we should all take that time to define what we really want to achieve. How should we approach it? Don't just use the techniques that we already know or the data that we already have or the process that we've done a million times before. Instead, step back and think about what we want to do. And I cheat by using those first two, which are just problem solving and uh, thinking before you act, because you told me that number three, I have a whole bunch of processing power. So I think my
Yeah.
third one would then be using a system or a tool to actually look for whether people had done this before and then learn from them. So I guess I want the internet as my third. Because while I might feel like sometimes I know a lot of things, it's so great to be able to
Sure.
learn what other people are doing, learn a new technique, apply it. And then also, I feel like I'm going to need a way to get my message back off of the island. But I think what's funny is when you asked me my three things, the analytics, even though they're my favorite and they're the point, I think you need
Mm.
other things beyond them to get it done. So yeah, those I think are my three. People in the comments, tell us if you could only have three things to get a project done, what would it be? But now, Tess, what would be the three
Yes.
things on your inside island? And also, I want to know what food and drink you would have.
Yes. Well, I kind of figured your drink was a beer, given, yes. So you'd already know, but you didn't mention your food. Do you want to quickly, what would be your food?
Ooh,
You must have food.
must have food. Ah, I don't know. I don't think I have a
Something to go with
favorite
the beer?
food. Is that terrible?
No?
I guess I don't know. Like
All
pizza.
right.
Everybody loves pizza. Pizza.
Yep, yep. No, and look, hey, this is our island, so we can have whatever we like on that. Pizza,
Yeah.
pizza growing tree, right? So for me, red wine and cheese. So there you go. I've got the food covered. In terms of the three things, I love yours. So can I have those and then add three? Is the way I'd look at it.
I guess we could be on this island together, and you can use mine.
Oh,
I'll
so it's
share.
not a lonely island. Okay. So I think one of the things, definitely, as you said, like that objective, having context. So I'll take it the next step and say, we're getting off the island. So knowing the audience, like who, not only what the problem statement is, but who's going to be making the decision. Yes, I can get on that boat and we can leave. So I kind of want to know the audience, what's going to trigger with them, what's going to resonate and engage them. So understanding the problem, as you said, but also the audience for it. I think the other would be a way of categorizing or segmenting the data. So if I've got all these trees that are full of data, how would I group them? So what sort of information have I got? And how can I put like with like? So I think that would be some way of categorizing and sorting through. I think would be really very, very helpful. And then I think the third one, extending it from the stick, which I had all sorts of images in terms of how decorative the stick was going to be.
Actually,
Even though
Rob
I'm not a
Scott in the chat has said a whiteboard. So if you don't want to stick, I guess you could use a whiteboard, like Rob is saying.
Okay, good idea, Rob. There, thank you. Well, actually, that might be a good point, Heather. Is there any other great ideas before I use my third wish, as the expression might go?
Oh, yeah, I know. So, yeah, we've got some things coming in. I've definitely got a couple
Okay,
votes for the Wi-Fi, so they're right there with the
okay,
internet with me. People
yep.
are loving their SPSS. I gotta say, I like my SPSS too, but
Hmm.
we're getting a little
Hmm.
SPSS love coming through.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So, and from a food, I might actually. Lara is throwing in the suggestion of fried chicken, so maybe I should update my pizza one to that. But no, I think you're still open
Oh,
for grabbing your third item.
okay. So then I think my third item, which would you believe I've just got totally distracted by all that food. So I'm trying to remember I had it. I think the third would be the oh goodness. Oh, what should I do with my third? Oh, I know. Data from off the island, so I can put it in the context of the data in the island. I knew I had it, and then I lost it when we started talking about pizza growing and Kentucky Fried Chicken. Oh, it wasn't Kentucky, but fried chicken trees. So really about understanding what trees of data might exist outside, because that helps bring context to the data that I have on the island. Does that make sense, or did I get too rambly there?
No, I think, well, not too rambly for sure. But wait,
Okay.
so the last one was data from off the island. You had the segmentation, and what
Yes.
was the first one?
Oh, the audience. So in the fact that
Audience,
I've got the
right.
people, yes. So as you commented, it's about the objective, but it's also about knowing, well, what's going to engage them, how am I going to engage them, so that we can convince them that we should be let off this island. Yeah, because I mean, you can't create the insight unless you're knowing the audience and the object statement.
Yeah. Well, if I know one thing about our current audience, which is people love whiteboards. There's a lot of,
Okay.
whiteboard love going on over here, and I like it. If I got a whiteboard over there. There's my whiteboard. There's a little view of my
Yeah.
office here as well. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining in on that. So that was
Sure.
Tess's question.
Yep.
Now I
All right.
came up with a round to run through, and I'm going to kind of explain how it works, and then I get to ask Tess first. So again, this is a people analytics session. We're going to talk about that, but I want to ask you, Tess, would you rather? And I'm going to give you two items, and you have to pick which one you like
All right.
better. Now, what's going to be
Mm-hmm.
hard is you're going to like them both, but I'm even going to up it another level, which is after you pick one, I'm going to debate you as to why I think you're wrong and the other one is better. And we're going to see how it goes.
Okay.
And people in the chat, you're going to help us kind of debate. We're basically we're going to face off on these, and then we'll flip it. I'll give you and then, you give me a chance to pick first, but you get to pick first.
Okay.
Deal?
Yep.
Okay.
It
So
sounds like fun.
no pressure. Nothing like a fight to get things going. So Tess and I are good enough friends that we can fight.
Yep.
Tess, would
Mm-hmm.
you like to defend reporting or analytics?
I'd rather do analytics. It's tough, but I'd
Okay.
rather do analytics. Yeah.
Why?
So, well, maybe I should start with kind of saying, to me, the reporting, definitely, I'm not saying it's not important. It's the storytelling, it's the engaging. But in order to do the reporting, I've got to do the analytics. And I just mentioned I think the main reason why I went for analytics. For me, it's that excitement about the doing. So I think about it being about discovery, exploration, working with the numbers. Hey, CSI moments come to mind where you've got these data points and you're profiling and, you're searching for something, you've got an objective. But sometimes the objective might shift and change. So I think from that perspective, I think it's a working with the data, but it's about that discovery, which makes it quite exciting. And sometimes you don't necessarily know what it is that you're going to discover. You still have an idea and an objective that started the journey, but you don't always have the end absolutely known. And I think that would be the main reason I'd be excited by that. It gets to use, there's a whole lot of fun tools you get to use when you're doing the analytics as well. And you get to, or hopefully when you're doing good analytics, it's also about discussion, and it's not just about one person doing it all. It's about working with others. So there's collaboration and connection. So that's why I would rather analytics. So Heather, why would you? Well, maybe you wouldn't rather
Yeah.
doing reporting, but you accepted the challenge. You want
Yeah.
to do why reporting?
Yeah, so in this game, you don't get a choice. You get to defend the other one. Actually, in the
Yeah.
comments, if people prefer analytics or reporting, go ahead and tell Miss Y. You can even feed me some answers here that you think I should use against my friend Tess. But if I am, defending reporting, why reporting instead of just analytics? Um, you know, I'm gonna go with the easy one first. You can't do analytics if you don't have any reporting.
Yeah.
If you have no data to actually get it and munge it and clean it and have ways that you can look at it and assure that it's clean and good, you actually don't have a very good foundation from which to then do analytics. If you've never reported on what the values might have been in the past or at different times, how can you truly analyze them? And I'll also say that there's a lot of power in reporting by itself. I recently joined the International Organization for Standardization, and they're focused on global standards around human capital reporting. And, maybe there's a tiny bit of analytics in there, but it's mostly reporting. And it's giving us standard common ways to talk, to transfer ideas, to set things for organizations. And to me, that's pretty darn powerful. So I'm gonna say reporting's still, it's still got a fight in this game. So yeah, anyone in the comments, you've kind of heard Tess say why analytics. You've heard me kind of say why reporting. Love to hear if you agree or disagree. But now I'll go ahead and go kind of to the next one that we had here.
Okay.
Liam's in the chat saying he prefers analytics.
Oh, Liam. He's an Aussie too. Yay.
Oh, you Aussies.
I know, we stick together. What can I say? But having said that, when you were talking about just then, Heather, we didn't mention standards. We might need that on our island as well.
We might. I agree. I would prefer our island has a bit of standards.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right, we'll come back to that. So, here we go. For me, I'm thinking I give you the would you rather people analytics or HR analytics?
Yeah, it's my turn to pick first. You got to pick first last time. I gotta go people analytics. I know that sounds like cheating because this is called People Analytics Future of Work, but so I'm gonna champion people analytics here rather than HR analytics because HR analytics covers a lot of the processes and a lot of the things we do around talent management and activities, but there's more around what you can know and understand and include about a person that you can include when you talk about people analytics. So we can get into things that might sit outside of the HR purview, and we can get into broader connections. We can get into work-life balance, things that sit outside of the organization. We could get into, workplace interactions. We can get into environments, styles. So I'm kind of a champion here of people analytics because it can also maybe include HR analytics as well. But, what points would you give to support HR analytics?
Yeah, it's a toughie because given the topic is people analytics, we're probably a bit more pro people analytics. But HR analytics have got a place as well. And I think, in terms of it, there's good HR analytics, which could be used for representing the function itself, its efficiencies and effectiveness, which also means that it could give some indicators as to how the HR function itself can perform better. So not only how it is performing, but also how it could perform better. So I think that would be a pro in the HR analytics. And I think, HR analytics can also, or great HR analytics, can also look at it from the viewpoint of how that function is actually contributing to the business. So same as there is finance analytics or marketing analytics or even business analytics, there's ways that we could be reporting that would help the business understand how the function contributes to the bottom line. So things like programs that might be instigated by HR, such as returnships or referral programs. I mean, just the benefits of these sorts of programs can have significant contribution to the bottom line of an organization. And so it could be considered HR analytics because it's the function itself and it's doing this work, but it could quite significantly be able to represent the story to the business.
No, I like that. That's a good point about
what are they? Oh, yeah. Thank you. So,
I was going to tie in what you were just saying there too. I like that it's about measuring. You can measure the HR processes, you can measure efficiency. There's a lot more, apart from the people that you can do with HR analytics. But Liam is actually making a strong case for people analytics, even though he didn't intentionally. With someone like Liam, you can measure the whole person even their interpretive dance skills that might have nothing to do with the job, but sure impact our experience and our happiness. So, Lara, thanks for bringing back up Liam's little dance move there in the comment. Again, don't forget, we actually want to see your takes on these in the comments. So, and I know you've thought about these things before, everyone there on the chat, HR analytics versus people analytics. But we've actually got a couple more. So, Tess, you get to choose first again this time.
Okay.
So, what would you rather focus on? Operational workforce planning or strategic workforce planning?
Oh, look, I'm a strategic workforce planner, so I'm definitely going to
I knew
take
you were
that
going to
one.
pick that one.
I knew, yeah, you knew I was going to pick that one. It was a pretty obvious one. Having
So,
said
those
that,
of
of
you in
course,
the chat, start giving us some
yeah,
help. Strategic workforce planning or operational? Which one's better and why? All right, Tess, you pick
yeah,
strategic workforce
okay,
planning, but actually, just
I
in
did.
case, I feel like
Yes,
analytics was a little straightforward. Just in case people don't know
yeah,
what workforce planning is, maybe the 10-second definition first, and then why strategic?
sure, yeah, not a problem. So for me, workforce planning, I pretty much position it as being around. I call them the 9 keywords. It's about understanding our supply and demand of our internal and external organization, current and future. So we need to understand currently what's our internal and external supply and demand. And we need to do actually understand it across 3 elements or attributes: characteristics. So quite often we're talking about behaviors, your skills, your behavior. Sorry, I already mentioned that. Experiences, knowledge, etc. Your availability, where we need them, which is a great topic for the moment, given that once upon a time we would have, when we said where, it would be a specific physical location. That is definitely being challenged, and the lines are being blurred now. The where, the when. So is it seasonal? Is it all the time? Is it a point in time? And then lastly, but quite significantly importantly, is productivity. So that's what workforce planning is. It's those 9 key words, as I call them. And the other element of it is the timing, the time frame. So I mentioned current and future. So when you're doing tactical workforce planning, which isn't one of our options here, but tactical would tend to be your resourcing and scheduling, which is your immediate kind of month on month. 6 months might be as far as you're going ahead with that. Operational workforce planning tends to align with your operational plans, which is 12 months. So that's when 12 to 18 months might be a bit of a stretch. It depends on the organization. And then strategic is where it's aligned with the time frame in which the business is using to develop their strategic plans. Now, typically that's anywhere from 3 to 5 years, but there's organizations that have programs of work that are out 8, 10 years, even to 20 years. So whatever time frame the business strategy is being developed for, that's what the workforce plan should be aligned to at the minimum. As you start to build the muscle in strategic workforce planning, you can stretch the time frame. So that's my working definition, always up for a stretch, a test and extend, but that's the fundamentals. Is there anything you'd add for defining the space of workforce planning there, Heather?
No, I really like the 9 words to kind of help set it in that layout of tactical, operational, and strategic. But why did you pick strategic?
Okay, so I picture tactical, operational, and strategic like nesting dolls, right? So, from the viewpoint of the decisions that are being made at your tactical and your operational level, they're building your future workforce. Okay, so if you don't have strategic workforce plan, how do you know the decisions you're making on that day-to-day basis is actually building the future workforce you need? So that's why I love strategic workforce planning. I see it as being that it's that, again, exploration and discovery, 2 keywords that I used earlier as to why I like the analytics space. It's also why I like the strategic workforce planning, because here you're not just dealing with a probable future, what's likely to happen given what's already happened. It's also about the plausible and the possible. The plausible being what's resonating, but it's not necessarily something that your organization has on its immediate radar at the present. And possible, well, anything's possible, isn't it? So as a result, strategic workforce planning is an opportunity to stimulate and to stretch thinking. And that's why I get excited about that space. So have our audience
Awesome.
helped with any more of those before I hand over to you for operational? No?
No, we don't have anybody saying that they're operational or strategic necessarily, but and again, workforce planning, are you more operational or more strategic in terms of what you like? David in the comments did kind of point out a pretty, I don't know, a goal that we're going with here is look, it's really both of these things. So, of course, I like strategic workforce planning, but that's not the game we're playing. So, let me tell you why it should be operational workforce planning. As so, strategic's wonderful. But how many times have we seen a strategy for a company get blown away? For example, I wonder how many strategic workforce plans are now in the metaphorical, wastebasket because nobody planned for COVID. And those kind of plans are sometimes not able to react as quickly, whereas an operational workforce plan, you might be able to address more near-term issues within it and then make sure that you can get there. So I see operational workforce planning as slightly more direct to the situation that we're dealing with today. But I'll also give it credit for it has that alignment to the financials, to the head count, to the operating rhythm. Not that strategic can't, but there is something very real about a 12-month goal or an end of year or a quarter goal that really does bring workforce planning to the forefront when you do it on an operational standpoint. And so I really like that about it, that it can be integrated into the work processes. So that would be my little pitch for why operational instead of strategic. We've got Lara in there on your team, though. She's saying that she likes the strategic side and loves your nesting doll analogy.
Well, I think that's part of it, though, isn't it? I mean, let's go back to the game itself. Would you rather? It's meant to be hard to choose because you wouldn't really rather one or the other anyway. So that's how the game's played. So it is challenging. And I think, for me, I wouldn't want to do strategic workforce planning and not do operational workforce planning. It is very much about, we need them all, right? They've all different purposes. It's so interesting, though, how many organizations do only focus on one or two of these purely by the timeframes that they're using and wanting to deal with the knowns. So to your point about the operational, if an organization only worked operationally and only worked with knowns, then they will always be in a response mode. Whereas the strategic actually gives you the opportunity to be the proactive. But again, to your point, if you're not truly exploring things like what would happen if there was a pandemic and how we would all work virtually, then that would be quite challenging. So I'd say that you're not quite doing the strategic workforce planning right if you're not exploring some of those scenarios. But it would be impossible to present that you can think of every variable, right? But it is very much about some preparedness, I think, is part of the story there.
Yeah, and I like it. You gave me a nice little knock back there where you were, saying like, yeah, but your operational is only reactive, isn't it? I caught that last little jab that you got in.
It's okay.
All right, let's do our last.
I pulled it.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. You're still playing clean. We're fine.
Yeah. Go. Right. All right. Last one.
Last one. Yeah. And I believe it's my turn to pick this time.
It is indeed.
All right. Well, weirdly enough, I've had the words that are on the left 3 times in a row now, so I'm just going to stick with it because it's working for me. So, Tess, I pick data transparency over data privacy. So, I'm going to call out everyone, those who know me know I am all about how we think about data for good and how to be transparent, how to be private, how to be appropriate, how to not be creepy with our data. But if I have to pick one or the other, I would actually pick data transparency over data privacy. And my reasoning for that is I think that it's our inability to know what data is captured on ourselves and on others and how it's being used and the outcomes of it that actually is the root of most of the problems. I think that if there was more transparency, we might see less privacy problems because there wouldn't be any hidden, invisible harm. Kathy O'Neill's book, Weapons of Math Destruction, talks about
Yeah.
one of the key components of that being that it's not transparent, that it's invisible. And, when you look at systems like baseball, by the way, it's the playoffs today, and
Mhm.
my Oakland A's were losing when this started, so I'm really nervous right now. But if we think about a
Oh,
baseball analogy, um, they keep stats on everything and they run predictive models all the time. And they do some
mhm.
really kind of weird things with those analyses, but it's not a problem because they're transparent about every single number. And people debate how good or how bad these metrics are and how good and how bad these models are in a really open,
Mm.
healthy way to where they're not doing as much damage because people are aware of what's going on and what's with it. So I am pretty strongly on the data transparency side here. Not that I don't like yours as well, but that's my take.
Yeah, I know it's a tricky one. Um, so I'm actually going to use a verbatim quote from the chat earlier in today's sessions,
Ooh.
where, yeah, in a session earlier today in the Q&A, someone actually commented, as an employee, I think I would not feel comfortable sharing some personal information with my employer. So I thought, when I saw that, I wrote it down and I thought, here's a position of someone thinking about, their privacy. So when this came up, it was just a trigger to me, just to play it back, to say, actually, people see that, their data, they want control over what it's being used. They want to see it as being an ownership of theirs. It's private. I get to choose when I do and don't share it, and how it's collected, shared and used. I think people see it as a mark of respect, that their privacy is regarded, and that if there is the signal from respect and trust kind of go hand in hand. So you can't give trust necessarily without respect, and you can't give trust without, giving them the respect. So that's where I feel the privacy part plays out. But I think, to your point that you just made earlier, though, if people are being transparent about how it's being used, then that does actually start building that bridge for the respect. Hang on, I think I'm starting to flip sides here. That's not how we're meant to play.
Don't worry, I'm on your team on this one too. I think if this was a real boxing match, we'd just both decide to nope, nope, not doing
Yeah.
it. I think we are in each other's corner on this one. And David, don't know if you go by David or David John, is leaving us a comment here around.
Yeah.
He's also on team transparency, just
Mm-hmm.
because of the mistrust that might
Yeah.
happen when there's not transparency. And I think that's a really important piece because there's that culture aspect that he's talking about and the trust. I definitely think the two go together. I also think that while you have been playing fair, Tess, Lara
Mm-hmm.
has not been playing fair in the chat. She's trying to throw me off my game by giving me the
Right.
score that the A's are down 5 runs in the ninth inning.
Oh
So for
no.
all you baseball
Oh.
fans, Lara's playing dirty, and she's clearly on Tess's team here. Um, but I'm gonna
Absolutely.
rally. It's all
That's
right. It's
very
only
distracting.
series. All right. So this
All
next
right.
round, and this next round, definitely for those who are on the chat, we actually want you to
Mm.
answer and fill in, these sentences for how they would work for you. So this is the fill in the sentence around people analytics is a must have ability for HR practitioners because, and this is where we'd love to see you finish the sentence.
Mhm.
And I'll give you a little bit of a pause and I'll ask, Tess, how would you fill yours in?
Um, I think it's because it's the language of business. So it's we're going to be left behind if we aren't able to leverage the rich data. And I mean, haven't we discovered that just through the day with the different sessions that people have shared, both from the viewpoint of vendors with products as well as organizations that are actually using the data. Um, it's being able to create stories that resonate with the business, and I think that's why it's a must-have ability for HR practitioners.
Love that. That's
What if,
fantastic.
yeah.
But also said very well. We've got Vanessa here. Vanessa, thank you for
Mm-hmm.
commenting. Others, please finish the
Please,
sentence.
yes, please.
Vanessa says, because your people are your most important and valuable resource. Vanessa, that's so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree with you. And I think Michael was sharing in her session earlier too, not just the people, but also the relationships and the social interactions and the things that they
Mm-hmm.
bring. So fantastic there. Actually, Michael also chimed in. She's saying that it's so important because it turns them into superheroes. I like that.
Oh,
It's sort of the what's your power.
uh-huh.
Daniela, thank you, is saying, it's important because we need to make decisions based on evidence. Great point, Daniela.
Mm,
Um, Deborah, great. She's saying how we have access to more data than we've ever had before, and
yeah.
HR needs to be able to have those skills to really use it and bring it forward. It's fantastic. Um, and you know, I'm watching the chats. If you're watching them too, Tess, feel free to jump in. But I feel like a sportscaster right
Oh,
now.
no, 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 no. You have to be the sportscaster. I'm afraid
Great.
you can see the chat. It was one of the sacrifices. I can't see the chat, so it's all yours. I really love hearing it.
All right.
And I wish
It's all right.
we'd
This is
let
the way
them
I
go
like
first.
sports
Right.
casting. So Keith actually has jumped into and said
Mm-hmm.
that it can help HR stay informed of the reality. David's jumping in more because of how much our world changes in such a short period of time and how it can connect.
Mm-hmm.
Marley is talking about how it can really get at the intersection of people and business and how powerful that is. These are fantastic sentences. I'm actually going to, throw in a couple more. I'm checking our time. I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and David, this next sentence, I actually want you to maybe fill in because I think you kind of answered this sentence a little early, and there's not a single right answer, but what is a key takeaway from this session? And it can be anything that you've taken away so far uh, for those following along in the chat. And mostly because I've been taking up airtime with sportscasting. Feel free if
Yeah.
you want to fill in yours, Tess.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go the easy path, and I'm just gonna say the key takeaway from this session is that people analytics is fun. I think that you can have so much fun with the data, and I think the other is the connection. I mean, a key takeaway is the connection and collaboration, and I think this is part of what drove us to approaching this session in this way, Heather, is that it's it's about creating the dialogue. So you know one person looking at a set of data versus another person looking at it can actually understand some different things. Now we can say that there's an absolute truth there because it's the data, but we all know it's the lens that you're bringing to it that can actually influence how it's playing out. So I think for that, it's people analytics is fun because it creates opportunities for collaboration and connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And I mean, one of the key takeaways, I love the fun. I agree. I'd say the people in people analytics are also
Mm.
fun. It's so neat to see the comments coming in. We met through PAFOW sessions, and here we are now just like boxing and having fun with each other. The community is so great. But I know one of the
Mm,
things that you and I were wanting to get across in this session is every different topic area is such a unique combination of what's right for you, what's right for your organization at that
yeah,
time. So at one moment, it could be HR analytics. At another, it's not HR specific, but it's about people. Sometimes it's operational workforce planning. Sometimes it's strategic, and that we need
yep,
to really think about the situation and know which one is right for that time and have the critical pieces to connect. Deborah did just chime in with, the subtle and but meaningful distinctions
uh-huh,
between different terms. So thank you, Deborah. Spot on.
mm-hmm,
Is how we talk about these a lot, but sometimes it's important to define what we mean. Keith is really, taking away some comments and thoughts on transparency, how we build trust from there. So I think good takeaways are jumping in into the comments as well.
great. Well,
Okay,
I
a
just wrote
couple
down
more.
that we've kind of
Yeah.
got four C's there, right? So we've just spoken
Oh,
about what you were just speaking about context, right? The big thing that in terms of it, I was thinking, right, context, community, connection, collaboration. We could keep building on this, so keep the C theme going. We'll see if we can end up with seven.
I like the C's. Okay. If we could put the slides back up, let's do a couple more. So here's another sentence, and this will be something I'd love to hear in the comments. One thing I would
Mm,
like to know more about in the people analytics space is, and I'll tell you, this is definitely a planted sentence from Tess and I. So one of the reasons that Tess and I paired up here is we've actually been working on ideas around learning labs that we can offer to the PAFOW community and others interested in growing. We have lots of things that we are passionate about educating and sharing and working with, but would love to hear in the comments, what's one thing that you would like to know more about in the people analytics space. And we'll give that a little bit of pause because there's a delay when it comes through in comments.
sure.
Um, and, I guess on my end, I've been really coming to learn to appreciate new techniques. So I had in the past always only done the techniques that seemed right for my organization at the time. And I'm starting to really get a chance to play with other techniques that I'm seeing others do. So, right now, we're seeing a lot of uptick on things like organizational network analysis, sentiment analysis. I am loving
Mm,
the emphasis I'm seeing on things around inclusivity, well being, DE&I. And so the things that I'm really, spending some time on in this space are leveraging those kind of techniques and approaches because they're really popular right now for good reason, and I'm enjoying that. So that's definitely on my
mm.
list. What about for you, Tess?
Oh, look, the list is quite long. I think if we go back to what we were hearing earlier today as well, our growth mindset is always questioning how could I have done this differently? How could I do something, you know, not necessarily better? I think it's about the stretch. Where can the stretch be? Predictive analytics is one of the spaces that I feel is uh, an opportunity for learning more about and its application. I've seen it used well. I've seen it used not so well. But I also do feel that we're only starting to scratch the surface in terms of how that plays out in the people space.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Keith, I'll get to yours in a moment, but John just said how he really wants to understand where the practice can sit to have the most
Mm-hmm.
impact in the organization. And I know that's a dialogue
Oh
that comes up a
yeah.
lot. Michael's
Mm-hmm.
also talking about this notion around other kind of departments and functions. He's talking about, how can we apply analytical approaches used in other disciplines and bring
Yeah.
them more into the people analytics space. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Deborah's given a shout out to our learning labs. Thanks, Deborah. But really, how to work in the given context around the economy and the pandemic.
Mm.
Um, David's, talking about how we can share the narrative of projects. And I know you were talking about really being
Yeah.
able to know your audience and get the message out there. And Daniela, thank you, wants to know about things around budget or advanced tools. These are all fantastic topics and really, really diverse. They're kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving how they're not all necessarily on the same topic. So definitely different needs for people as they're filling in this sentence. And we'll take these down because these might be good ones. And maybe those of you who left them in the comments, we can always reach out to you if we have resources or things that could help you with those since you're
Yeah.
focusing on them. But since we have just a little bit of time left here, let's do our last sentence, and then we can actually have some time for Q&A. I saw one from Keith in the chat we can start with. But let's close out with our last sentence. So in the chat, what makes people analytics fun for you? Like, what makes it fun?
Do you want to? Why don't
Yeah.
you start that one? Why don't you start?
All right. Well, definitely those of you listening, playing along, tell us in the chat what makes people analytics fun for you. People analytics is fun for me because it's this way of knowing more about one of the most complex things that there is. I think people are so weird. We are so unique. Like some of us have, interpretive dance moves. Thanks, Liam. But like we're this beautiful, wonderful, complicated thing. And no two people are similar. And so it makes the idea of applying, science and analytics and research in around people, it makes it so challenging, so unique. You kind of have an answer, but you always are like, but it could be this, but it could be that. And there's something to me that's just really fun about trying to grasp at the unknown. I know for some people that can make it uncomfortable, but I'm sure there's some watching who maybe have that same passion for the difficulty or the challenge in it all. But what about you, Tess?
You nailed it. I think, it's the thriving, again, I'm going to use those words, discovery and exploration. That's what makes it, fun for me, that there is not the certainty. I love working with the uncertainty, not to the degree that we just keep churning around and not doing anything with it. I also love being pragmatic and, as was mentioned before, it's data-informed decision making. I don't believe, and I don't think many of us do, that the data is the decision, but using the data to inform decisions along with other data points, I think it's brilliant. Mm-hmm. This is why I find it, fun and an area that we can spend. Well, I mentioned before, nearly 20 years of a career. It kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah. Now we do have some good chat comments. Deborah is saying how it helps her really connect with other people. I think she's coming back to that, C's thing around connection and community. By it lets you deliver those results or individual findings. Keith agrees that we're weird. And David, I'm glad that you're kind of on the same page with me, which is it's hard, but that's actually what makes it fun. Like that's kind of the exciting part. And, speaking of hard, Michael Moon likes to throw in words like ambicerebral. So she just wanted to make even the words themselves hard to say. But just making sense of the world is what she appreciates from it. And then, David's offering in more around combining data. So I think these are all things that we agree with. It's why we're all here today. Even, some people started their day with these sessions. Some are ending their day with these sessions. But I think it's because we find people analytics fun. And I think we just have not a ton of time, but a little bit more time for questions. So if you in the audience had specific questions, feel free to toss them into the chat. And we actually already have one from Keith. So I'll kind of throw it out there and Tess if you want to take a stab. But Keith is asking, what are the barriers or hesitations that companies have with using more qualitative research rather than relying so heavily on quantitative data?
Yes, look, that's a really good one. And In terms of the field of people analytics, it is very much calling out that there's quantitative data and qualitative data. So thanks so much for calling that out, because whenever the word, quite often, data gets used, people immediately think about the numbers, and they start to look at, if we go back to our stats days, it needed to be valid and reliable. Well, a lot of the work that I do when I'm working with strategic, or maybe I shouldn't call it strategic, but futuring, I focus a lot more on it being valid than reliable. In order for the data to be reliable, it means it needs to be repeatable and exact. From a viewpoint, I'm narrowing it somewhat, but qualitative data can be about assumptions, and that can be valid. Is it valid to assume ABC? That's different from it's being that it's happened before, here it's proven, here's what will happen again. So I think that in terms of why organizations tend to be looking at the quantitative more than the qualitative, as probably because people see the quantitative somewhat as being an absolute, and it's a truth. And so just quickly, one of the stories I will often share with people working in the people analytics space is people think finance numbers are accurate, right? Well, the fact is that finance actually just has a lot of standards and international standards. They're way ahead of us in the people analytics space, right? So they got the standards. So they're all using the same sorts of formula and definitions. The other part that they have is they have some rules. I mean, we all know within our organizations that finance will prepare the statements, the financial statements, because they close the accounting on the last Friday of a month. And then whatever's in accounts receivable, accounts payable. Funnily enough, when it gets to the people side of analytics, is we have accounts receivable and payable, we have recruitment and termination, but we don't have those sorts of standards that apply. And so therefore we struggle when we're even trying to use the quantitative, because we don't necessarily have the same rules. So I think that's what makes some of it a little hard, is we've already got some challenges in the quantitative space, but when it gets to the qualitative, that adds to it. But Heather, I'm sure you've got more to add to why organizations struggle with the qualitative side.
Yeah, and I'll also throw in, James has a question about how does context, so back to your C's, how does context play into collecting both qualitative and quantitative? And, so to James and Keith, it's funny, one of the in-person learning labs I'd done with PAFOW before was actually on workforce research. If anyone had taken that with me, you'll know I had a lot of fun. I actually went to Australia, and I got a picture of myself with a koala beforehand, just so that I could make a joke about calling it qualitative research. And so I am such a fan of qualitative research that I go out of my way to meet koalas just for a punchline. But no, qualitative research is so powerful. But to James's comment, it's all about context. There are times when I think quantitative data is better and is reliable and is connected, but that's going to be depending on what I am trying to measure, what I'm trying to do with it, what audience I'm trying to move. But if I was trying to understand things that are even more, squishy, well, that's actually where qualitative data has enormous power, because we can use it to not box people into numbers, not smush them into pick A or B, not be a decimal point, but instead let their words, let their feelings, let their content come out. And then those who are, understand qualitative research methods can use the methods that they have to extract the meaning from it without losing the human in the data. And so I love qualitative research because it keeps the H in HR, at least when you do it in the HR function. Sometimes it's outside, but keep the human in the human data. So really fantastic. But Michael has a great, I think, ending question for us. Tess, if your younger people analytics self were to ask you now, what is one thing that you would tell yourself to do differently or the same, and what would they be? It's one thing you do different, one thing you do the same, and what are they?
Yes. I think storytelling would definitely be the part that I'd create more of an armory around. Early days, there was about, here's the table. What do you mean you don't understand what I'm trying to tell you? Or here's the graph. And you'd present your packs and it would have the graphs, the tables there. I think telling the story earlier would have been particularly helpful to be able to have got traction. So I think that would be the part. The other is just because I started my career somewhat in HR, and it's kind of it. I think from that viewpoint, one of the comments I used to get a lot because I'd work with data is they'd go, "Oh, when I'd meet with business people, they'd go, are you sure you're from HR?" So I think what I would do the same is I'd still be working with the data. I'd still be questioning. I got rewarded for the fact that the HR information system that we had in the organization when I was younger, and I started working with the data and asking more and more of it, that my reward was ultimately that I was, the HRIS manager and ended up implementing your PeopleSofts and your SAPs and the rest, because I just questioned, I would do all of that again. Just find where some data is and start working with it and ask more and more of it. And part of that is the conversations that you have with the people around the systems. What about you, Heather?
Yeah, I guess if there's one thing I did different is it took me a long time to use people analytics for a purpose. I got a
Mm-hmm.
little too concerned with the accuracy of my models, or how good my data was, or how smart my stats were. And I thought that that's what it meant. And it took me a long time to realize that's actually not the point. Those are tools. And the point is, what do you do with it? How do you convey a story? What are the outcomes? How can you make work life better for people? Are you paying attention to unintended consequences? I will be honest, I'm a little embarrassed. It wasn't until I was fairly further along in my career to where it dawned on me that I was just doing numbers. I wasn't doing purposeful people analytics. And if I could go back, I really wish I could, because I could have made so much more impact. But that being said, the one thing I wouldn't change at all is, like many people, and please tell me in the comments if you're one of these people, I didn't get into this career on purpose. I didn't really know this was a thing. It happened on accident. Please, if you're one of those people, tell me in the
Yep.
comments, did it happen on accident to you? But I just followed my passion, and I keep following my passion. That's the way I kind of live it. It doesn't mean that you don't stay in a job longer. It means you find things within it that you are passionate about and you apply them. And for me, that has meant that I keep chasing those hard to answer questions. I keep chasing those people data for good outcomes. And it's worked out fairly well for me. So if anybody's on here from like a career advice perspective, don't overthink it. Follow your passions. I
Mm-hmm.
did, and I am a happy person because of it. So
Yeah.
maybe that's something I wouldn't change. Um, but I think that's fantastic. I haven't gotten any comments saying that we're off, but I know that we're right at our time. If
Yeah,
anyone
we
has
are.
additional questions for Tess and I, we are happy to be connected with you. As we mentioned, we're both kind of educators, trainers, communicators. And we just love helping people on their own personalized kind of unique journey. So feel free to reach out to us. And any last closing comments, Tess?
No, I absolutely agree. And I find it so interesting that with both of us just then, there was some alignment between what we would do differently and what we would do the same, which is just amazing. But it makes me wonder, from our audience, you're kind of going, oh, is there some more data there? I wonder if there's a story there. What about you,
It's
Al?
fantastic. And here is Al.
You're on mute still,
Al, you
Al.
got the mute button again, buddy.
I reckon this is a trick. You pretend that you're giving us compliments, but in actual fact, yeah.
It's funny because when you started on this combative staging, and then you end up like holding hands, skipping down the lane. So it was nice to watch that transition happen. But yeah, one of the things I just want to call out that you two have highlighted is that defining terms in our discipline is necessary, that we do need to get on the same page with those that we're working with, whether that be internal customers or partners, and certainly technology firms, because the language is flying all over the place. So just being grounded in that, and also highlighting the fact that it's fun, and meaning that, for at least for me, that if you're curious, if you want to figure stuff out, if you want to help people, if you want to help organizations, if you want to help groups, diversity groups, obviously being prominent now, and as well they should be ongoing, whether it be Black people in the United States, or women pay equity, or whatever the case is, we can. Well, there'll always be something to do, and so I really applaud the level of conversation and just the way you two show up. So thank you for that. As we wrap, any closing comments?
I do have one. So when we started this, I was trying to pick what food I was supposed to take on this insight island, and I didn't have an answer. Well, now I do. In the comments, Michael was saying that she uses something called a data sandwich. So, Tess, I would like my food on the island to be the data sandwich. Everyone can go check it out in the comments, what she's talking about there.
Will do. It sounds great. Sounds yummy. It is actually almost lunchtime here in Australia, so I will definitely check it out.
And how about you, Tess? Closing comments?
No, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks to the audience participation. It's always, one of those things, particularly in the virtual world, isn't it? And I think we're all still learning that virtual participation. It's a muscle that we're going to have to, obviously strengthen. So it's great to see the comments, the Q&A, not just in our session, but during this program, and I'd like to see even more. Same with the networking. Let's not underutilize the opportunities with this great platform that you have here, Al, for heading in to meet with others during breaks or programs that you think, oh, look, this might be an opportunity to go meet someone. So I think that what you're doing with the platform is fabulous, and I think the challenge for all of us is to actually use it how we would if we were physically in a conference.
Right. Well, thank you for calling that out. Thank you for the kind words. And obviously you're involved. Both of you are. So thanks for your contributions. And yeah, certainly more to come. I really like the way you position it too. It is a muscle that we're going to have to learn how to use because it is foreign, but it's what we got right now. And even when we go back to meeting in person, this will be a component. So thank you to both of you for what you do and how you do it. So we'll talk soon. Yeah.
Yep, will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right.